Good afternoon. My name is Sunny. I am the minister here at Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, and my pronouns are she and her. And I thank you all so much for coming here today to honor Jane DeBrock, to celebrate her life, and to support her family. It is a sacred time, this. It is a sacred place, here. It is a place for questions more profound than answers, for vulnerability more powerful than strength, for a peace that can pass all understanding. It is a sacred time, this. So let us gather to honor the passing of a beloved family member and friend, Jane DeBrock. As we deepen into our time together, I'd like to take a few minutes to become fully present and mindful on this sacred occasion, because it's important to feel what we feel at times like this, because grief in particular can be hard, and because grief can be big. So let's take a big breath together, inhaling and exhaling fully. Feeling our bodies on the pews, feeling the connection of our feet to the floor, feeling our connection to each other, to all those seated around us who have come to honor Jane. Let's just take a few breaths here together, remembering why we are here. More than anything else, we are here because you loved Jane. Today, you will hear reflections from some of Jane's dear friends. You will have an opportunity to share your own reflections. We will enjoy some beautiful Dave Brubeck jazz, and we will sing. To bring us into this service, we will now light our chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith and how we open our time together around here. As Anne lights the flame, I will share a reading written by Helen Keller from We Bereaved. We bereaved are not alone. We belong to the largest company in all the world, the company of those who have known suffering. When it seems that our sorrow is too great to be borne, let us think of the great family of the heavy-hearted into which our grief has given us entrance, and inevitably, we will feel about us their arms, their sympathy, and their understanding. Believe, when you are most unhappy, that there is something for you to do in the world. So long as you can sweeten another's pain, life is not in vain. This memorial service, with its words and ritual and music, is a way to sweeten each other's pain and celebrate the rich meaning and deep value in Jane's well-lived life. And now we will hear about that life from two of Jane's friends, Ann Stevenson, followed by Sharon Kleinen.
Hello, I'm Ann Stevenson, and I'm honored to have this chance to share just a few words about Jane, because you all are going to have a chance to do that. You know, Jane had the most beautiful smile and a joyful countenance. She dressed with an artist's eye, beautiful clothing, and of course her home was beautiful. I met Jane in Seattle when my husband and I were living there, through a good friend, Sydney, who's here today. And then they decided, when we moved back, they decided to move here. And I was just overjoyed that they were going to be living in Bellingham. And then not only that, that they joined the Unitarian Fellowship. And it was it was no surprise to me when Jane joined the hospitality committee. She brought her smiling gifts to everyone that she met. She volunteered in my classroom when I taught at Silver Beach, and she loved children, and the children knew she loved them. She had this spark that was just fabulous. One little story, Judy, Casper, and Jane and I went hiking to explore the 100-acre wood. And of course, Jane came prepared. She was fully dressed for the rain, and I wasn't. And at the end, it was like, oh, I gotta get out of here. But Jane, she was like ready to keep hiking on. And anyway, but love Jane. I have to say, I feel so sad, and this is what happens anytime I come to Memorial. I didn't get to spend more time with her. And it's just a reminder that all of our lives are short and that we need to fill every moment we can with connections with others. And so we get to meet Jane's family today, too. Anyway, thank you.
I didn't know I was on the program. I was going to ask Les before this started when, oops. Oh, okay. That's fine. When they moved into the house on North 78th Street, because my digital photographic library, the earliest picture I could find of Jane was 2002 when we were making cookies in December in my kitchen. And I know they were there much before that, and there were probably other pictures that are just in an old album someplace, because there were many opportunities for gatherings on our block. We started doing yearly summer yard sales, 2-day yard sales, which got really old, and we switched to 1 day, and then eventually we just stopped with the yard sales and had the potluck afterwards. That was the best part anyway. We did a lot of trading of furniture and tools and books and toys for all of the kids that were growing up, John being one of them. I still remember John tinkering out in the driveway with all of his cars and neighbors' cars too, I believe. Yeah, lots of tinkering. Jane was the one who invited me to join her book club, which was a different book club than the one that we have now. And we did that for, golly, I can't remember, 25 years, something like that. So those of us who just snuck in the back have been meeting with Jane once a month for all of those years. And especially as we rotated from house to house, and when she moved up to Bellingham, we couldn't really do that. We do it once a year in Bellingham at her house, have lunch, take a walk, maybe discuss the book, and just enjoy being here in their wonderful house. So those are the experiences that we're now missing. Every time we have book club, we think about Jane, and we miss her, because a lot of the books that she recommended are books that I remember and I really enjoyed. And she was such a warm and positive person. She was always friendly and cheerful, even towards the end there. So she will be missed. And every month when we have our book club, we will think about her, if not more often. Thanks.
And now we will have a musical interlude followed by reflections from Susan Ward and Nancy Lewis. And Susan and Nancy may speak now.
It's really good to have music at this because I know Jane loved music. And the last time I visited in the spring, she took me to an all-cello concert that was here in either Fairhaven or Bellingham at the university, I think, that she loved. And when I talked to her later, she really remembered that distinctly. I met a smiling, friendly young woman named Jane in the late 70s in Seattle. One of my favorite memories is of us together on a mountaintop in the Cascades beside our pitched tent, looking out over the late afternoon light at Glacier Peak. Beautiful and a tad chilly, but Jane was prepared for that. She smiled and held up a flask of brandy, which she knew is what you should drink on a mountain. It's impossible to think of her without a smile. That smile covered her face into her beautiful, warm eyes. She was the kindest friend you could have, gentle, good-humored, encouraging. She was fun to be with and fun to cook with, and taught me several dishes, like her crustless Southwest quiche or how to make more delicious enchiladas. I remember stories of her childhood on her island, of canoeing to school. She knew low-tide creatures, loved being outdoors. She was a Northwest girl, British Columbia variety. She was someone you could count on in an emergency. I did once, and she was the right one to call. She lived a good, full life and touched everyone who knew her with sunshine.
Hi, I'm Nancy Lewis, and I met Janie in the early 70s on the softball field. And we both played for University Hospital. It was a co-ed team, and we had lots and lots and lots of fun. It was just great. And she talked me into playing with her women's team, which played on Queen Anne. And so we wound up playing ball 4 days a week. And it was like, did we have time for anything else? Well, we both worked, so we did. And it was just great fun, great fun. So in, let's see, the early, mid-80s, I was working in an osteoporosis research study, and we needed a nurse. So my co-worker, Helen, and I ran up to the floor that the research department was on because Janie was up there. And we said, do you want to come and work with us? And she said, yeah. And I said, great. So we did that. And, in and out of our lives, we'd meet here and there and have a wonderful time. And I remember when she and Les were courting, and he had a place over by the zoo, and they woke up to zoo animal noises. And she would tell me about those. And I remember when she and Les got John, and it was quite the story, and we loved that. And later on, I went to work at the VA, and I decided I wanted to row. So I called her up and I said, do you have any interest in rowing? And she said, Yes. So we rode for a couple of seasons down at Pocock, which is underneath the University Bridge. We'd meet there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'd row before work, and she rowed before whatever. And we just had the best time. You know, we stayed upright for the most part. And, you know, all my flips were right at the dock, so that was easy enough to deal with. But hers usually wound up being when we were down by the rocks underneath the Fremont Bridge, and we were over next to the Husky docks for where their crew comes out. And we just had a lovely, lovely time. And I got a chance to visit with Les and Janie in their home up here. And it's such a lovely spot. And I rather lost touch with her in the last couple of years, and I regret that deeply. And she was just, she had the best laugh and the best smile, and she was a very, very dear person.
The following poem that I'm going to read was written by Leslie for Jane, and he asked me to share it today. Jane. Sometimes when I look at you, I see a younger sister whom I want to protect from all the baddies of life. Or I might see a lover who takes up more than half of the house and more than half of me. You've been my longtime partner through all our steps and missteps in our trek from back then to here and now. Always peering ahead to guess where this trail might go. At times, you've been my teacher who reveals enough, but not too much at once. A bottle can be filled only so fast without making a mess. You're the one who keeps the house from feeling empty, the one to whom I can say, wow, did you see that? Who says back, yeah, I saw that, wow. You're my life's big love. There can never be another with whom I raise a child, or build a house, or dig a garden, or finally learn to dance. And now we will take a few moments to open up the mic to anyone who would like to come up and share a few words.
Hi everyone, I'm Rod Haynes, and Jane was a member of our Chalice Circle. One of the wonderful things about the Buff community are the characters that we have here, and they're really amazing. And Jane was one of them. When we first arrived in November of 2016, there were 3 people the first day that I remember: Barbara Gilday, Jane, and now I can't remember the third one. But I want to say this to Les. Les, we're with you 100%. I always liked Jane because she had a backbone. She said what she meant and meant what she said. I liked her laughter. I liked her smile. She was just I'm sorry, it was Beth Brownfield. Beth, if you're here, I'm sorry. But it was Beth and Barbara and the other one. I've said enough, but I want to say this. Our love goes to you and your family. We definitely grieve with you. Daria did have to work today, and that was a mandate, so I'm sorry she was not here. But love to you both, and we will miss her greatly. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge Jane's Canadian friends who aren't here today. Some of them I hope are watching on Zoom. I grew up in West Vancouver, across the Lions Gate Bridge from Vancouver, with Jane. I was a Girl Scout too, in a different troop. Then we were both in the Sea Rangers. In the Sea Rangers, we had a boat and we did rowing and we did lots of exploring. Then we were both active in the Varsity Outdoor Club. Lots of trips, week-long trips in the snow in the spring. But then I left the area for 37 years and didn't come back till 2001. So when I came back, actually I reconnected with Jane when she was still in Seattle, and occasionally saw her and did things with them. Danced at I think it was their 25th wedding anniversary at the Arboretum in Seattle. And then it was really fun when they moved here in 2008 and started building their house. She would share with me her latest finds, flooring, whatever, a good deal she got. And we shared lots of things and gardening. And then when the house was finished, they had a lot of wonderful parties and potlucks. And for a while, we hiked every Thursday. But then we got older. So the last few years, as she wasn't so well, we were very Canadian. We got together and we drank tea and talked and shared cookies. And she's very missed because we had that Canadian connection, and it was very dear to me. Thank you.
I'm David Ray, and I am Jane's stepbrother. And if I had life to live all over again, I would have developed a much closer relationship with Jane. But there were people in my family that kind of pushed it away, and I didn't realize that I was being deceived quite a bit. So it's, with her sister Anne as well. They're both very good people, and Jane's had a lot to offer. I too we've ended up in the Unitarian Universalist. I'm also Unitarian Universalist in Tacoma. So I know what it's about. So we did have a couple of times a year we'd talk together, one Christmas and for her birthday. And it was sometimes about Unitarian Universalism, some of our experiences with it. So Jane is going to be greatly missed. But she's with us in spirit.
I'm Stephanie Rains. I'm so glad to see so many people here. I have a very short story. I didn't realize until the person spoke just a minute ago that Jane came here about the same time Lynn and I did. I started being involved partly because of Jane. I was part of a group that Doug Branson put together to create some guidelines for chalice circles. And Jane was part of that group, and you'd think she'd been part of this church, this congregation forever, because she had a lot of confidence. But mostly she was so welcoming. And my experience working with her and a few other people has led to me being very involved in this congregation, and I've been missing her. The other thing she and I did together during COVID, I did some painting classes. They weren't really classes, they were experiences online, and Jane came and had beautiful stuff to share, and had this, as Anne mentioned, this aesthetic that was so beautiful in the way that she dressed and the way that she did her art. But I think the thing I just wanted to highlight is how important it is for us to invite and welcome people, and Jane was a beautiful model of that.
I can do it without crying, John. Shush. No, I can't. Okay. I even wrote it out, guys. Whew. Even though my time with Jane was a lot shorter than most of yours, I cherished every moment of the past 9 years that I got to spend with her. From the first moment I met her, even before John and I started dating, she was so welcoming to me. When I sat down to write this last night, I was at a loss for words. How do I sum up what Jane meant to John, myself, and our daughters? She had such an amazing bond with Olivia and Maddie. I asked them what their favorite memories of Nana were, and both of them said sitting with her in the chair and singing songs to her. Music is such an important part of our lives, and the last day that Jane was at home, I brought the girls over to see her. I took each one of them in individually so they could give her a kiss and a cuddle. Even though she was sleeping a lot at that point and really out of it, she opened up her eyes when I lifted each girl up to her face so that they could give her a kiss. She was also able to give a genuine smile, say hi, and I love you to each girl. When it was getting closer for the time for me to take the girls home, all three of us went in one last time to sit with her for a bit. I asked them if they wanted to sing Nana a song, and they both chose Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because they're 2 and 3. While we were singing, Jane cracked her eyes open a bit and smiled. I will hold these memories in my heart forever. A few days after she passed, we went over to have dinner with Papa D. The weather was pretty nasty, but there ended up being a double rainbow. I told the girls that that was Nana's spirit flying in the sky, and now every time they see a rainbow, they will shout, "It's Nana's spirit!" Trying to explain to a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old that Nana had passed away, and getting them to understand that was harder than I thought it would be. Although I explained it the best I could, after I explained it, Olivia said, "Yeah, but I think she'll be okay." And that's when I realized that I needed to speak in words that they could actually understand. In one of their favorite movies, Moana, the grandma passed away, but her spirit returns to tell Moana that she will always be with her in her heart. I told the girls that Nana will always be with them, even if they couldn't see her, just like Grandma Tala in Moana. And that seemed to work. They still talk about Nana and how much they love her and miss her. I'm so glad to have specific references that they could understand. Jane will always be with us in our hearts. Thank you, Jane, for giving me the title that I wear with pride, the other Mrs. DeBrock.
Well, I met Leslie first. We were in a writing group together. And I was quite smitten, actually. And then one weekend, this small women's group that I sing with, we sang at Jamie Curley's birthday party. And this woman came up to me afterwards and was so delightfully, she was delighted with the music and so sweet to me. And then she told me her name was Jane DeBrock. And I was like, oh, I know your husband. I don't think she knew. She behaved towards me as if Les had told her all about me, but I think that was the first time I ever met her, and I just was like, oh, of course, she's wonderful. And then Sunday, come to church, and they're sitting over in the pews, so I was like, oh my goodness, this means we're supposed to be friends. I meet them both individually somewhere else, and then they end up at church. So that was kind of the beginning of 10 years, 8 to 10 years of, suddenly they were like just really good friends of ours. And last minute, hey, do you want to come to brunch? And should we meet out for Chinese food somewhere or taking walks? And Jane gave the best hugs. She was such a warm hugger. And I just feel so lucky that I met her.
Hi, I'm Catherine Allen. My husband and I moved here just a few years ago, so my friendship with Jane has not been as long as many of yours have, you lucky people. Jane and Leslie were among the first people we met when we moved here, thanks to mutual friends, the Caspers and the Bakers. So I've had a chance to meet Jane almost every month for a meal and many times in between for coffee and tea. I'm going to give you just a little snapshot picture of an experience I had with Jane, which was very beautiful, and I hope I will remember and cherish forever. Last July, sort of between treatments, I think, when Jane was doing okay enough, she invited me over to their beautiful home and land to have tea outside and watch nature at work and look over at the beautiful scene of the mountains. So we just sat and chatted, sipping tea and talking about very ordinary things, family, a little bit of history, and nature all around us, the birds and whoever else was coming to nibble their food. Most of the time we chatted, but sometimes we just lapsed into what I will call a very companionable silence, which I treasure as much as the words we shared. And I just feel that Jane's friendship, and Leslie's as well, is a great gift to me, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I didn't plan to say anything in this service, because I know people knew Jane much longer, but I feel something is missing, so I'm going to mention Jane. She belonged to a Buddhist reading group by Zoom with several of us, and I see another member of this group here, and we came to know Jane a little differently. I have never seen so intelligent person, so perceptive. I always looked forward to her comments. It was a very wonderful experience we had with Jane. I know every member of us, which all this small group of 10 to 12 people, we consider ourselves a Sangha. This deep Sangha that we have, and we feel for each other, she was a member of us. And we miss her and her comments deeply. And I want to tell you a little bit of Buddhism from Jain's perspective. She truly understood that our individual life is not a single life. We are all connected. We are interdependent. And the Buddhist thing is very deeply ingrained in her, that dependent origination. We are not alone. We are all connected in a network. That is why there is nothing like death and birth in Buddhism. So she is not really dead. She has been transformed to other entities in life. Thank you very much. I had to say this because nobody was mentioning her Buddhist aspects.
And for one final element of this portion where all are wished to speak, yesterday Ted Williams, who is a buffster and a member of the choir, said that he would like to lead us, as music has been mentioned several times. Ted's experience with Jane was musical in some ways. So Ted is going to lead us in How Could Anyone Ever Tell You?
I'd like to say a few words before we sing. I think it's beautiful that Debu just spoke about our Buddhist group. I was in that group also. And when we sing this song, it's a really good connection to that fact that she is in us and she is still with us. I do want to mention when I met Jane, I remember exactly where it was, right back there. She walked right up to me and she said, "Would you like to be in our chalice circle?" And I knew I couldn't say no. I'm sure I've heard from other people that quality of being the head nurse, always embracing, always there. And in the years in the chalice circle, I went through some really difficult times and my vision was getting worse. And Jane would call me up. She'd make sure that I had a ride to go to our chalice circle. I always felt loved and cared for. And I thank you, Jane, for that. So this song has just 4 lines in it. You can look in the Teal hymnal in 1053, but I encourage you to just, many of you know this song, and if you don't, you'll pick it up very quickly. I hope you will sing with me. I encourage you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine that Jane is right here in the middle and we are forming a circle, hand in hand, heart in heart, surrounding her with love. So please join in when you feel and if you feel moved. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. I love you, Jane.
Thank you to everyone who shared. And I know there are a lot of others who have sharings in their hearts, and we honor those as well. I did not have the pleasure of knowing Jane. However, in the lead up to this service, I had the opportunity to speak with folks who did know Jane. What I heard was that she had a loving, glowing persona. She was open-hearted and friendly, taking newcomers under her wing. Though she faced health challenges, she managed them with an appreciation for life. She was an artist, bringing that gift into the design and building of a beautiful home that Jane and Leslie shared. It was a place where friends gathered, sang together over the holidays, and had bonfire rituals of letting go or igniting hopes for the future. It is clear there was great love for Jane from friends and family alike. But where there is love, you will likely find grief. Author David Kessler writes that love and grief come as a package deal. If you love, you will one day know sorrow. Kessler was a protege and colleague of Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, the Swiss-born psychiatrist best known for her model on the 5 stages of grief. Kubler-Ross and Kessler would go on to author 2 books together before Kubler-Ross died in 2004. At that time, Kessler was an expert on grief. Then, following the unexpected death of his 21-year-old son, he, quote, knew he had to find a way through this unexpected, devastating loss, a way that would honor his son. That journey ultimately led to his development of the 6th stage of grief, meaning. In his book, Finding Meaning, Kessler writes that the 6th stage of grief involves acknowledging that although for most of us grief will lessen in intensity over time, it will never end. But if we allow ourselves to move fully into this crucial and profound 6th stage, meaning, it will allow us to transform grief into something else, something rich and fulfilling. So what does meaning look like? Kessler explains it can take many shapes, such as finding gratitude for the time we had with loved ones, or finding ways to commemorate and honor loved ones, or realizing the brevity and the value of life, and making that the springboard into some kind of major shift or change. What we are doing here today, together, we are making meaning. In your words, I have heard that gratitude for the time you had with Jane. You have come together to commemorate and honor her, and I think it's fair to say we're all realizing here the value and the brevity of life. No matter how much meaning we make, however, this is nevertheless a time when we are reminded of so much mystery. The mystery of life, the mystery of death. There is so much we just don't know. And it is times like these when we desperately want to know. We want answers, reassurance, understanding. I wish I had the right answers or the ideal wisdom or the words that could bring the perfect peace, but I don't have those. What we, all of us, do have, however, is one another and an opportunity to come together to support one another and to be in remembrance, to remind each other of things we might have forgotten about Jane, about life, and to be reminded that we are not alone in our grief. As we prepare to sing our final hymn, I would like to share a poem by Rabbis Sylvan Kamens and Jack Reimer entitled A Litany of Remembrance. We remember them. The phrase, we remember them, will repeat at the end of each line of this poem, and I invite you to say it with me, if you would like to, in remembrance of Jane and all those we have lost. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. For as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. And now I invite you to rise and body your spirit as we sing our final hymn, 1064, in your teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home. may be seated. And now, as we prepare to leave this sacred space and go back out into the world, may each of you find in your own way, in your own grief, in your own remembrance, the peace that passes all understanding and the knowing that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. As Anne extinguishes our chalice, I affirm that we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of enduring love for all those we have lost. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, family and friends invite you to go to the social hall downstairs, where there will be light treats and appetizers and memory sharing. Thank you for coming today.